Number 1.
James Corbett Flint says his mother Kimberly Flint, 57, loves going to church and gardening outside her home in Laneville, Texas. Corbett told us his mother, a homemaker, is also a bit of a homebody. Since Kimberly didn't like to leave home, she often called her husband James Roy Flint to bring dinner home on his way back from work. In fact, she called him on September 26 at around 3:10 p.m. to ask if he could bring her some food on his way home. Corbett says he was returning to town after being away from home for 2 months driving trucks for work. He told us his dad suggested that he pick up Kimberly so they could all meet and go out for dinner. She said no, but that was nothing out of the ordinary, Corbett told us about his father's phone call. He says his dad didn't think Kimberly sounded distressed or different. At 3:45 p.m., Highway Patrol responded to a report of a one-vehicle crash on Highway 84, Sheriff Jeff Price of the Rusk County Sheriff's Office told us. Around 4:30 p.m. that afternoon, Corbett says his father received a phone call from the Rusk County Sheriff's Office saying they had found the Flint's 2016 green Jeep Grand Cherokee. They said it was found crashed into a cement guardrail on the side of Highway 84 near the Angelina River Bridge. Kimberly was nowhere to be found. A statement by the Rusk County Sheriff's Office confirmed that Kimberly was last heard from at 3 p.m. that day and that her car was found off Highway 84. Corbett says the police told his father they found the car in neutral, both sets of keys inside. Kimberly's glasses were also found inside. Kimberly was nowhere to be found. Corbett told us it is very strange for his mother to be driving at all because she usually refused to drive. She didn't like to drive. She said she didn't feel comfortable, he said. My mom didn't really like to go anywhere. James went home to check if Kimberly was at home, but could not find her. He picked up Corbett, and the two met with the sheriff's office to give a description of Kimberly for a missing persons report to the National Crime Information Center. Corbett, who is a retired Marine military police officer, said he went to his mother's home to do his own investigating, while his father James went to the scene of the crash. I didn't see anything out of the ordinary, Corbett told us. I found her purse with everything still inside, and I found her phone on the arm of a chair with the charger wrapped around it, like if you had just put it down and you were going to come back. Around 6 p.m. that night, Corbett joined his father, where police had found the car, about 15 miles from Kimberly and James' home. He said he noticed that police were not on the scene, so he called the sheriff's office and 2 deputies joined them. They searched until 1 a.m. The following day, Corbett says the search efforts grew to include search dogs and horses and expanded foot searches. Corbett says both he and police called local hospitals but did not find Kimberly. Sheriff Price told us police have conducted multiple dog searches, river searches since Kimberly's disappearance, and that they have searched her car for clues. There were no signs of bodily fluids, blood or anything of that nature at the car, Sheriff Price told us. He says his office has processed the car more than once and that none of its windows were broken. We are fairly certain that she was the one driving the vehicle, he said. She knew that my dad was coming home within 45 minutes with her food, and she knew I was coming in after working for 2 months. Why would she just jump up, leaving everything? Corbett said to us. From everything I see, I think there is a lot of possibilities about what has happened, Corbett told us. He thinks someone could have tried to kidnap his mother. Sheriff Price says police are looking into the possibility that Kimberly was picked up by a stranger after her car accident. He says police are sifting through evidence, including important electronic evidence. He says he is urging the public to come forward with any and all information. Corbett is spearheading the family's efforts to find Kimberly. As time goes by, he is becoming increasingly worried about his mother. I'm in disbelief that my mother is gone. I am trying to focus on finding her and put all that emotion inside my head, Corbett said. I'm just worried if she is out there. I don't want her to be in pain. Kimberly is described as being 5 tall and weighing about 150 pounds. She has gray hair and needs glasses. If you have any information on Kimberly's disappearance, please call the Rusk County Sheriff's Office at 903-657-3581.
Number 2.
The grand jury indicted Alan Lamont Sutton Jr., 33, of Kilgore, and Lanesha Lashy Young, 29, of Overton, on charges of capital murder of multiple persons in the disappearance and death of Sheryia Grant, 20, who was 8 months pregnant when she was reported missing in August 2016. Her body has never been found. Sutton, the father of Grant's unborn child, in April 2019 was given the maximum 10 years in prison by a Rusk County jury after being convicted of tampering with physical evidence in the case. Young also was convicted of tampering by concealing a trunk liner missing from a car that Grant and Sutton shared. According to December 2 indictments in Smith County, around August 20, 2016, Sutton and Young intentionally and knowingly caused Grant's death by striking her with a blunt object and setting her on fire with accelerant and, at the same time, causing the death of Grant's unborn child. The indictments also state Sutton and Young could have struck Grant and set her on fire all while trying to kidnap her. The Texas Attorney General's office is prosecuting the case, according to the indictments. Sutton was sentenced on the Rusk County tampering charge on April 17, 2019. Chief Justice Josh Morris III of the 6th Court of Appeals in Texarkana later upheld the 10-year sentence. The ruling said with the presented evidence, a jury could find Sutton removed and concealed a trunk liner or cooperated with Young in such actions to keep it out of any investigation into Grant's disappearance. The appellate court's ruling goes into a detailed description of Sutton's relationship with Young and souring relationship with Grant, including that, while Young was serving jail time, Sutton lived with and impregnated Grant, her cousin. Morris wrote that Ashley Odom, who lived with her boyfriend, Sutton, and Grant at the time, testified that Grant told a friend she loved Sutton, who seized the phone, choked Grant and told her he would kill her. Young also assaulted Grant in Sutton's presence 3 months before she disappeared, Odom testified. Sutton and Grant jointly owned a car that was repossessed after Grant disappeared, the ruling said. The creditor noticed the car was missing a trunk liner, spare tire and jack, with traces of Grant's blood found on the underside of the trunk's lid. The ruling said blood was found on the wiring from the trunk into the trunk's lid, but that the blood was not tested. Morris said in the ruling that the wiring looked like a person was trying to escape the trunk. Sutton, who state records show is an inmate at the Texas Department of Criminal Justice Hutchins Unit in Dallas, is also awaiting trial out of Gregg County on a solicitation of capital murder charge, to which he entered a not guilty plea in 2019. A Gregg County grand jury indictment states Sutton on or about August 1, 2016, attempted to induce Nicholas Williams to murder Grant. Kilgore police in March 2017 said in a statement that a juvenile from ARP was taken into custody in Rusk County in connection with the disappearance of Grant, although the minor's name has not been released. Young was sentenced in July to 8 years in prison on a charge of tampering with physical evidence in connection with the case. She is listed as an inmate at the Mountain View Unit in Gatesville. The family is still offering a reward for information leading to the discovery of where Sheryia disappeared. The reward still stands. Could you please come forward to help us find her body? Someone knows where her body is. I'm not giving up until I get the answer to everything I need to know, declared Arnita. The family is urging anyone with information to contact the Kilgore Police Department. A $10,000 reward is still offered for information leading to the discovery of Sheryia's whereabouts.
Number 3.
More than 32 years since a 16-year-old East Texas girl went for a walk and never returned. Michelle Richardson was last seen near her Palestine home on FM 322 in May 1989. Investigators believe that she disappeared on that same busy highway. She just went walking, and she was gone, said Linda Richardson, Michelle's mother. Until this day I still don't know what happened. I would like to know what happened to her. We all would. She goes for a walk and just disappears off the face of the earth, said Joe Willis, original investigator. Michelle Richardson was last seen walking down a busy highway on May 1, 1989. Her mother, Linda, watched her walk away. She said she was going to walk about half a mile and come back, and well, about 20 minutes passed and she didn't come back, so me and my son went looking for her and we didn't see her nowhere, so that's when I called the police, said Richardson. Anderson County investigator Joe Willis remembers the call nearly 22 years ago. "This is the picture of Michelle Richardson that we had, and I still carry it with me," said Willis as he pulled out of his briefcase. As time goes by, he says a happy ending grows dimmer. "After this amount of time I think there's probably foul play involved," said Willis. "We just haven't had any leads in this amount of time. I think there's probably foul play. There's no physical evidence to prove that, only theories. At first, authorities thought Michelle was a runaway. We thought, well, maybe she's hitchhiking to a friend's house. She didn't have but a handful of friends and we checked all those out, and no one had ever seen her. Michelle and her little brother, Jeff, went walking every day. The one day he didn't go with her is the day she disappeared." He says 5 minutes after she left walking, he tried to catch up with her, but Michelle was nowhere to be found. She also left everything behind: her purse, clothing and her 2-month-old baby, Justin. The last known picture taken of Michelle was with her son. "I know he always feels like there's an empty spot because he didn't have his mama," said Richardson. Michelle's son, Justin, is now 21. He says he thinks about his mother every day and wonders if life would be different for him if she were here. During the time of Michelle's disappearance, 2 other East Texas teens also vanished: Kim Norwood and Kelly Wilson. For months, Anderson County authorities tried to connect the 3 cases. "At one time we were getting information from the Rusk County Sheriff's Department and we spent numerous hours in Rusk County following leads, and none of the leads were able to be followed up on," said Willis. In 1996, Willis says his investigation took him to the DFW area, where 9-year-old Amber Hagerman went missing. Her body was later discovered, but her killer has never been found. "I went up to Arlington and talked to those investigators as well, and basically the leads that we had never went any further," he said. "We had more ties to the girls coming up missing in East Texas than we did the Amber Hagerman case." Back in Palestine, Willis says they combed the area again, where Michelle was last seen. "They investigated everybody that we knew," said Richardson. "Nobody knew nothing. From 1989 until now she's never made contact with anyone. No one has seen her. No one has heard from her." Michelle's family holds on to the idea that one day they'll find out what happened to her on that May afternoon. "I believe that she's somewhere out there," said Richardson. "I don't feel that she's dead. That may be just wishful thinking, but I just don't feel like she is." In 2007, investigators collected DNA from Michelle's son. Michelle's case remains open, filed under a missing person.
Number 4.
Kimberly Norwood was walking to her home near Hallsville, Texas, when she went missing on Saturday, May 20, 1989. The 12-year-old had spent the first part of the weekend with a few of her friends, and she was reluctant to go home because she knew she had to clean her room. She was a responsible child, though, so she told her friends she had to leave, and they walked part of the way home with her. She was within a half-mile of her home in the Caney Creek addition when she parted ways with her friends, telling them she would see them at school on Monday. They watched as she crossed the Caney Creek Bridge, then headed in the opposite direction. They made it safely home. Kimberly was never seen again. Kim was the daughter of Bobby and Janice Norwood, and she had been living in the Caney Creek area for about 7 years. The subdivision had a network of twisting and winding roads. Visitors to the area inevitably got lost. Kim was very familiar with all the streets, however, and felt safe walking around. Kim was an excellent student who always got straight A's at school, and she especially liked science and social studies. She was a fun and outgoing child and had many friends. She was looking forward to her middle school graduation in a few weeks and was very excited about starting high school. She was at the age where she was very fussy about her appearance and took great care in choosing the perfect outfit each morning. She would also spend at least 30 minutes making sure her hair looked just right before she would leave the house. Kim spent the previous night at a friend's house and returned home that morning to drop off her dirty clothes and her curling iron. She and her younger sister, Pam, then went with their mother to another property in the Caney Creek subdivision. While their mother did some gardening, Kim and Pam went horseback riding, a hobby both girls enjoyed. 3 of Kim's friends stopped by the property to see if Kim wanted to play with them for a while, and she left with them. She called home later that afternoon to see if she could spend the night at the home of one of the girls, but her mother wouldn't allow it. She reminded Kim that she needed to clean her room and take care of her cat, Cubby. Kim argued with her for a minute before realizing it was futile. She told her mother she would be home shortly. The girls started walking towards Kim's trailer house around 5 p.m. When they were about halfway through the 1-mile walk, the other girls had decided they were too tired to walk the entire way. They told Kim they were just going to head home, and the group parted ways around 5:15 p.m. Kim was less than a half-mile from home at that point and should have made it there by 5:30 p.m. She never arrived. Janice was initially annoyed, assuming that Kim had ignored her instructions to come home. She called Kim's friend and was surprised to learn that Kim had left an hour earlier. She and her husband waited for another hour, then started driving around looking for their daughter. When they were unable to find her, they called the police and reported her missing. Police launched a search of the 650-acre subdivision, but found nothing to indicate what had happened to Kim. They saw no signs of foul play, and after speaking with Kim's friends and learning Kim hadn't wanted to go home and clean her room, they decided that Kim had most likely decided to run away. Janice and Bobby were adamant that Kim was not the kind of child who would run away over something like that. Getting her to keep her room clean was a constant struggle, but it wasn't a major source of contention. Kim had never tried to run away from home before and had never been in any sort of trouble. They were convinced that something must have happened to her. Harrison County deputies and community volunteers conducted an extensive search of the area, using ATVs, tracking dogs, and horses to cover as much area as possible. The subdivision was heavily wooded, and much of the ground was covered with thick underbrush. All of it was scoured, with many places being searched twice to make sure nothing was missed. Volunteers walked along miles of narrow footpaths looking for any sign that Kim had been there, but were unable to find anything. The search carried on throughout the night and into the next day. It was called off late Sunday night. Police were confident that Kim was no longer in the immediate area. Convinced that they were dealing with a runaway, law enforcement did little to search for Kim after the first weekend. Her friends and family, however, continued to search for her each day. They knew that Kim would not have run away from home, and they were determined to find her. They spoke with all of Kim's classmates, but none had heard from the missing girl. They made missing poster flyers and posted them all over Harrison County. A week after Kim went missing, every telephone pole, street light, and store window had at least one poster on it. Her parents were hopeful that someone would call with information about their daughter, but the phones were silent. By the second week of the search, Kim's family was growing desperate. Although law enforcement said they were following up on all tips that were called in, they were not actively pursuing leads in the case because they were certain Kim had run away. Her parents pointed out that her purse, money, clothing, and beloved curling iron were all left behind in her room. Kim never would have gone anywhere overnight without taking these items. They also pointed out that Kim was terrified of snakes. She never went far into the woods without her BB gun, which was still sitting in her closet. She was also afraid of the dark and avoided walking around at night because of that. Bobby and Janice found the attitude of the Harrison County Sheriff's Office to be completely unacceptable, and it would be a point of contention for years. They were sure their daughter had been the victim of foul play, and when they realized law enforcement wasn't going to do anything about it, they hired a private investigator. They also offered a substantial reward for information leading to the return of their daughter. A month after Kim disappeared, Bobby and Janice were asked to take polygraph examinations concerning their missing daughter. They immediately agreed, and a police spokesperson later told reporters that they had both passed with flying colors. Several other people who knew Kim were also given lie detector tests, and they passed as well. There were some rumors that a motorcycle had been seen leaving the area on the day Kim went missing, and that one of the riders on the bike had been dressed like Kim. Police did follow up on this, but were unable to substantiate the rumor. A deputy had noticed a car with a Colorado license plate in the area that same day and recalled seeing 2 teenage boys and 2 younger girls in the car, but police were never able to connect this to Kim. There were several reported sightings of Kim in the Lake O' the Pines area, and investigators were sent to look into these, but they found no evidence suggesting Kim had ever been in that area. The family's private investigator arranged for police to raid a home in Gregg County after it was reported that Kim was being held there, but they found only a girl who looked somewhat like Kim. In August, another large-scale search of the Caney Creek subdivision was conducted, this time using cadaver dogs and heat-sensing equipment. Once again, the searchers came up empty. There was simply nothing to indicate Kim was still in the area. Police believed that she had most likely gotten into a car with someone she knew. They ruled out the possibility of a stranger abduction because of the area. A stranger likely wouldn't have found their way into the subdivision in the first place, and if they had, they likely would have gotten lost. Residents did not recall seeing anyone unusual driving around the day Kim disappeared. Kim's family was deeply disturbed by the possibility that someone they knew might have taken Kim, but also realized it might mean she was still alive. They continued to publicize the fact that they were offering a reward in the case and made several public pleas for Kim's safe return. Bobby and Janice appeared on the Oprah Winfrey Show that August, where they showed pictures of Kim and asked for help looking for her. The exposure brought in some new leads, but no solid clues. The relationship between the Norwood family and the Harrison County Sheriff's Department continued to be strained, especially after the sheriff refused to accept any of the help outside missing person groups offered to provide. The feud reached a boiling point when people began protesting in front of the sheriff's office, demanding he explain why he wouldn't allow help on a case he clearly wasn't interested in solving. The department simply ignored the criticism. Despite the best efforts of the family and the private investigator, the case went cold almost immediately. In July 1990, more than a year after Kim went missing, investigators started searching on the Norwoods' property, digging up part of their driveway in an attempt to find Kim's body. It was the first public indication they gave that they considered the Norwoods to be suspects in the case, and it surprised most people, especially since they had previously passed polygraph examinations. They found nothing during the search, and some believed the sheriff had arranged to dig up their property as revenge for their constant criticism of him. They didn't launch any more searches there after this one. Police have never had any suspects in the case and still consider Kim to be a runaway. Her family has never stopped looking for her, and they still believe she is alive. Her mother thinks Kim may have been held against her will and then brainwashed, but is confident they will one day find the answers they are seeking. If you have any information about Kim, please contact the Harrison County Sheriff's Office at 900-335-4888.
Number 5.
Kelly was last seen at approximately 8:30 p.m. in Gilmer, Texas on January 5, 1992. She was leaving her place of employment, Northeast Texas Video on Buffalo Street, and heading to the bank around the corner to make her usual night deposit. The bank's security cameras showed that an individual did make the night deposit, but it is unclear whether or not the person was Kelly. She has never been heard from again. Kelly's car was discovered later in the evening in her employer's parking lot. One of the vehicle's tires had been slashed. The other 3 tires were intact. All of Kelly's personal belongings, including her purse, were inside the car, but her keys were missing. A grand jury indicted Gilmer Police Department Sergeant James York Brown and 7 others on charges of Kelly's abduction and presumed murder in January 1994, 2 years after Kelly disappeared. Prosecutors believed that Brown, who had been assigned to investigate Kelly's case, was involved with the 7 other individuals with kidnapping and imprisoning Kelly for over 1 week. The state also contended that they sexually assaulted and tortured Kelly while she was held captive, then stabbed her to death. It was alleged that the group was part of a satanic cult and engaged in violent acts, including child molestation, as part of their cult rituals. Many of the defendants charged with Kelly's murder were also charged with sexually abusing children. The murder charges against everyone were later dropped 2 months after the initial allegations had been made. One suspect, a teenager named Michael Bybee, was convicted of a misdemeanor for slashing Kelly's car tire. He admitted to the crime, but maintains he knows nothing about Kelly's disappearance and was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. The satanic cult was found to be non-existent, a fantasy concocted by overzealous investigators. Brown and the other defendants maintained their innocence in Kelly's case from the onset of the investigation. Kelly was dating Chris Denton at the time of her disappearance. He reportedly had a hot temper, and police investigated him for possible involvement in her case, but found no evidence to implicate him. He died of cancer in 2004, and there were rumors he had made a deathbed confession regarding her case, but the stories were untrue. Denton maintained his innocence until the end. Joe David Henry, the owner of Northeast Texas Video and the last person to see Kelly before she vanished, was arrested on child pornography charges in 2004. Authorities have emphasized that in spite of the nature of the charges against him, he has never been considered a serious suspect in Kelly's case. Kelly was a student at Gilmer High School in 1992. Her disappearance remains unsolved. Foul play is suspected.
Number 6.
Wilkerson was last seen at approximately 11 a.m. on July 13, 2004, at her boyfriend's residence near the 2400 block of 118th Street in the south side of Lubbock, Texas. He said she left his home to drive to her own home, then to work at Nothing But Smokes. Wilkerson apparently made it home, but she never arrived at work and has never been heard from again. Wilkerson's car, a black 1999 Honda Civic Coupe, was found parked at her residence after her disappearance. Her home was locked, and her car keys and house keys were inside. She also left behind money and all her personal possessions except her tan shoulder strap purse. She never contacted her employer to say she would be absent from work and never picked up her last paycheck. Neither of her two roommates have heard from her. Police stated that they were looking for a suspicious vehicle which they believe may have been involved in Wilkerson's disappearance. It is described as a small black truck set low to the ground, with unique smooth hubcaps on the tires and diesels in the back window. It may be equipped with hydraulics and may have tinted windows and out-of-state license plates. The vehicle and its driver have not been located or identified. Wilkerson's family lives in New Mexico and she had been planning to visit them before she disappeared. She was a sophomore at South Plains College at the time of her disappearance. She was the second young woman to disappear from the Lubbock area in the same time period. 16-year-old Joanna Rogers vanished from Lubbock in May 2004. Her remains were found in a local landfill in October 2006. While it is unusual to have two women missing from a comparatively small town at the same time, investigators have found no evidence to suggest that Wilkerson and Rogers' cases are connected. Wilkerson's boyfriend and roommates have been cleared of suspicion in her disappearance. Her best friend believes she was associating with drug users and possibly using drugs herself, but her mother doesn't believe Wilkerson would have abused drugs. She lived in a rental trailer at the time of her disappearance and attended South Plains College. Authorities believe Wilkerson is missing under suspicious circumstances and may be in danger, but they don't necessarily believe she's dead. Police are investigating her disappearance as a missing person possible abduction. Her case is unsolved.